Was it in the minutes?
No.
He volunteered.
Well, he did volunteer.
I didn't see that as action.
Well, no, you're doing the action now.
Well, you just. I thought you were just announcing that he's fit.
No, you're going to.
Is that what you were doing?
If it's all right.
You have to make a motion to approve him.
Everybody wanted someone from the village and in charge. So we're trying to accommodate.
Actually, people didn't want anybody.
Thank you, Beth.
I thought it was tabled.
Yeah.
When did you bring it up?
Until this meeting.
You tabled it at the last meeting.
To this meeting.
When?
No.
Then Patty needs to speak up because we did not hear
It
it.
was not tabled to this meeting, it was tabled.
Okay, well,
Let's move on.
So we took it up.
are the board members all right with this?
I need
That's
a
what I
motion.
need to know. I need a motion to accept him as the enforcement officer.
I make a motion we accept David as the enforcement officer.
Let me get
Before you vote, would it be possible for the public to speak?
The public comments are further down on the agenda.
So in other words, you're going to vote on this, but without any public comment at this point.
At this point.
So once you vote on it, it's done. Do I understand that correctly?
That's part of our freedom.
Pardon?
That's part of our freedom.
Did he submit an application too?
No, he did not.
It says in the ordinances that any board member can be, we can nominate him for officer.
He didn't get a nomination.
Years ago, the public asked for a board member to do this.
Yes, they did.
It was in a proposal that was given. So in other words, once it's done, the public may not speak.
Can I say
Till I get up
something,
and filibuster.
please?
This is a railroad.
I have a question that I would like to have answered, and I don't want to offend anybody. Clearly, there are a lot of concerns about having the ordinance enforcer. And in talking with a few people that I know, none of them are here, we were discussing, and this may not be a possibility, so help me understand. Is it possible to not have an enforcer? The board becomes the enforcer. For instance, Sally has a problem with Joe. And Sally comes to the board and says, I think Joe has broken this ordinance and I would like to have it addressed. The board would contact Joe with a letter. Joe doesn't respond. Another letter is sent to Joe, and Joe still doesn't respond. The board then can decide, you know what, Joe is not going to play by this ordinance that needs to be taken care of. We're going to go ahead and the board is going to decide to send it to the courts and let the court decide what the issue, if there is an issue. Clearly the board can know what the ordinances are and if there's a problem with Joe.
May I answer that? Sure. That's the process.
It is the
But
process.
you do have to have somebody who initially goes out and views and says, okay.
It was Sally.
I think that's the problem, Denise. I think
Absolutely.
people fear somebody driving around looking for a problem.
Amen.
Thank you, Jan.
Oh, you're welcome. And I don't want to offend. I don't want to offend you. I don't
not
want to offend
offending me,
Lucille. I don't want to offend anybody in here.
But the process you described is the process.
It is the process,
Right.
but it becomes the
it's
board's
not the
decision, and that's huge. Asking you
But-
guys as a board to do this is huge.
It is, that's what I'm
It's
saying.
huge.
I
That
just
is
don't
the
see the
process.
purpose of why it's such a big deal. If nothing's wrong, then why is the problem?
Exactly. If nothing's wrong, why do we?
Jameson, because of this.
Right.
Can I
but-
offer an objective, because I'm going to say it one time or another, so just will let me do it now. Why don't you take these ordinances, put them in your hip pocket, it's called a pocket veto, and sit on them, and leave it there, and don't move it.
Jameson's always had ordinances.
But we haven't had an enforcement officer until just now. All of a
Why?
sudden we need
Why?
an
Why?
enforcement
Why?
officer.
Why? Why? Tell me why.
I've never understood
Tell me
why.
why we need it now. I mean, you've got the accommodation of most of the people in this town.
Sit down, please.
Are you in charge?
You are the clerk.
I'm not in charge.
No, I feel like
asking
that's
a
right on
question.
me.
Actually,
It's got to get up. Somebody's got to get up and do the pot.
the rules say that he's supposed to stand when he
Every
addresses
time
the
we
board.
voted on ordinances,
That's
it was
right.
on the
You're
agenda,
supposed to
and not
stand.
one person showed up. No.
Okay.
You're not supposed to sit down. You get to stand.
Not until public comments come along. You don't.
You have thwarted us. You are railroading us with that because public.
No,
You're
I'm not.
already going to pass it, and
You know
then we
what?
can.
I brought my timer tonight because we have asked you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. That's what it says in the rules. And nobody pays any attention.
And
They
we
just
have
go
asked
over
you-
and over and over.
And we have asked you what Jan just expressed to you, and nobody and everyone ignores
No
it.
one's had a chance.
You've all ignored
You're
it.
going to pass it without even
Ignore
giving us a
anybody. I
chance.
try to get along with everybody.
So let's address what
Every
Jan just
meeting
brought
be
forward.
something different.
No, we don't.
Yes.
No.
Yes,
You do.
yes, it does. Every meeting, somebody else comes up with another reason why this cannot be done.
No.
Exactly.
You-
That's
Last
what
meeting,
we're,
they
you-
said nothing
that's
was
what
being
we're
done.
asking for is discussion.
David,
But when we discuss it,
talk.
We
and
haven't.
you don't agree with it, and you want to discuss it some more.
It has not been discussed. It's only our objection was to get it to be discussed.
We talked about a volunteer, about someone from the board being
was
the
the
enforcement
public
officer.
that
Whether,
asked
I mean,
for
I think it's the title that's, I mean, basically I'm still just gonna be another board member. I'm just gonna be the board member that is the go-to person if something's, I'm not gonna go running around in my wheelchair looking for infractions of what's going on. I went around today and I was so impressed with how beautiful the city, the village looked.
Amen.
And but
It's the same as
if
it always has.
if like Mary had said, I mean, it's totally different than it was 4 years ago when I moved here. There's a lot of changes that have been made and improvements. But like Jan said, you know, it would be somebody from the board. I would basically be, part of the language. Screw the title of an enforcement officer. I would be the go-to guy from the board because I don't want, that's something I would be willing to take on.
Do it.
And
Do it.
not that,
And, but in the future, looking 10 years from now, then who's the go-to guy if it's not our nice Dave? We've just set up an enforcement officer, which we've asked not to have, which is what Jan is just saying.
I have another idea. I love Jan's. Thank you for, and this is why we wanted it as a discussion, because I have another idea that we could
We
resolve
can't
this
have
whole
public
problem with. And that's that we could have a discussion and people could present proposals. I have another proposal that I feel like would resolve the whole thing. Is there going to be any kind of opening before you pass an enforcer that can be presented? I appreciate
I'm going to bring
Jan's.
it before the board and see what they want to do. I'm one person.
You have a motion, so you have to. You have
Either-
a motion,
Yes, I have a motion. Does anyone want to second it? If not, we won't.
then it will be back to discussion.
It will be back to discussion. Anybody? Okay. You satisfied?
Yes.
Heaven forbid.
Thank you.
Okay, I would just like
Heaven
to say something,
forbid.
because it was a couple of meetings ago that I sat here and I listened to everybody in the galley want somebody on the board to do it. So now they gave you somebody on the board to do it, and it's still not good enough.
You've missed a
We
few
are
me-
wasting
you've
time.
missed a
Missed
few
one
meetings.
One meeting,
Well-
because Dawn had a heart attack.
You missed.
The last meeting, they said they
Right, but
were
you change your mind every meeting.
The last
That's
meeting-
not.
Okay.
Guys,
We
come
need to
on.
conduct the business, okay? I appreciate it. Thanks.
Bills for discussion and approval. Lucille Lust. Miss Lust. Mrs. Lust.
We don't have too many papers to handle tonight, so I think I can just stand for this. As was discussed at, I believe, the last meeting, a request for an exception to the height limit on growth for naturally forested vacant land. You have it before you, and there are copies if anybody wants one and doesn't have one. For you to look at and determine if I reach the, what it is you're after.
You want me to read that? Do a first reading, or do you want to move on?
Go ahead.
First reading. Amending Section 5 of Ordinance 2011-05, property maintenance to provide for an exception to the height limit and growth for naturally forested vacant land and related matters.
The change is the exception for naturally forested land, and it states that as used herein, vacant land shall mean unimproved land having no man-made structures except fencing. So I don't think there's much more to say than that. If it reached what you were after in your discussion, then, you know, we're ready to move on. If it didn't, then, you know, you can tell me so.
I'm unclear why we're voting on, I'm for this, but I'm unclear why we're voting on it again. When I read the minutes, it said that we approved it, we approved the amendment, and we've all voted it, you know, individually on that. So why are we doing that again?
This is another amendment. You asked for the vacant forested land, and that was added. That was not in the one we approved at the last meeting.
We decided at the last meeting.
That wording should be in there.
Yeah, the wording.
And we voted on that wording being
Yeah,
in
but then there was
so-
more wording that we wanted added in there, I think.
Now, I haven't seen the minutes, so I don't know what the minutes say, but I do know what occurred. What occurred is that the exception being dealt with at the last meeting had to do with
the growth. Hay.
the hay and such. And then the question was brought up by a member of the audience about forested land. Board members seemed to agree with that and said they would like to have it written up. And so you passed the one that was proposed, and then this one is being written up as an additional amendment.
Move the adoption of the ordinance.
I have to do a second reading. Bill 014-18, Bill 2014-18, amending section 5 of ordinance number 2011-05, property maintenance to provide for an exception for the height limit of growth for naturally forested vacant land and related matters.
Move the adoption of the ordinance.
I have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Wait.
Aye.
It's a roll call.
It's roll call.
Okay, it's roll call. All right, Patty?
Yes.
Natalie?
Yay.
Alita?
Yay.
David?
Yay.
Beth?
Yes.
Okay. Passed unanimously.
Passed unanimously.
Okay.
Do you want to go ahead and have, Patty, do you want to go ahead and have her do a first reading before I give an explanation on the next?
Yes, please.
All right, hang on just a second. Bill number 2014-19, amending ordinance number 2012-03, Board of Trustees and Chair to insert section 14, Code of Conduct for Public Meetings and Related Matters.
Once again, there are copies if anybody, there are still, if anybody wants one that doesn't have one. This comes as a result of your request, Madam Chair. And I can go through each item and what it means if you like. Since everybody has it in front of you, I don't know if it's necessary. But I will point out that what's written in here is, with regard to people speaking, is different than what you're doing tonight. And so the board can determine, you know, if this is not what you want, if there's anything in here that is not what you're looking for, then questions can be brought up. But I will point out that, once again, that's item 4D. This calls for people can speak up to 3 minutes during public comments or on an agenda item, unless the time is necessarily reduced because there's so many in it, you know, it would take way too long. Maybe it would be good to just run through it. Number 1 makes it clear that it applies to everyone. It applies to citizens, it applies to guests, it applies to members of the board. And its purpose is to establish an orderly meeting so that business can get done. And the intent is that things be discussed with fairness, courtesy, and respect for different points of view. That's stated in number 1. And then it says that only members of the board and staff representatives invited by the chair shall sit at the table, which is what your practice already is. And 3 says, all persons shall conduct themselves in a businesslike manner, respecting the rights and opinions of others, whether a member of the public or a member of the board. Appropriate attire, including shirts and shoes, is required. I've always found this amusing. You see it in lots of places because it sounds like if somebody wears shirts and shoes, you don't have to have any pants on. You know? But I suppose that is automatically assumed by appropriate. Any written information is to be submitted to the village clerk prior to or at the board meeting. So in other words, if somebody wants to submit it prior, they can. If not, they can bring it at the beginning of the board meeting. People are to refrain from physical and verbal abuse, refrain from disruptive behavior, including loud noises, clapping, shouting, unwelcome physical contact, or any other activity that disturbs, disrupts, or impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting. Refrain from using cell phones or pagers while the meeting is in session. Then persons wishing to address the board on any matter shall raise their hands when the chair asks for public comments, and comment only when the chair calls on them. Stand to address the board or address the board from their seats. And so that's an option of the person, whether they choose to stand or address the board from their seats if you adopt this the way it's written. When called upon, state his full name and address if requested. And the if requested is there because most of the time you know the people that are addressing you. There's no point in, taking time asking people to state their names and addresses. But sometimes you may have someone that you don't know and would like to get that. And then I already read the speaking portion. And then address only the item on the agenda currently under discussion, except during public comments. And address the entire board and not attempt to engage individuals in discussion. And the final point is failure to comply with provisions of this chapter may result in removal from the meeting.
I didn't get the last page.
Since we're so specific, can I speak? Since we're so specific about everything, why do we not put pants in there? I mean, everything else is every I dotted and comma in there, and so I don't know.
Well, I certainly have no objection to it, but this is the standard phrase that is used throughout the law.
We have a lot of discussion about, is it in there, is it not in there, and so.
It's not in there, somebody could walk in without their pants on, so maybe we need to put them in there.
That's right, okay.
Well, once again, I think it's assumed appropriate attire under the law altogether. But,
Well, the law would prohibit
Yeah, coming in
running
there.
around without any pants.
Yeah.
That would be
Then we can call a shirt.
that would be
You mean my bikini shorts is not apropos?
Guys, anything else?
Yeah.
Any more discussion, Dave?
Natalie?
Lisa?
On the second reading.
Yes, please.
Bill 2014-19, amending ordinance 2012-03, Board of Trustees and Chair to insert section 14, Code of Conduct for Public Meetings and Related Matters.
Do I have a motion to approve this?
I make a motion to approve this ordinance. Amendment.
Second?
I'll second that.
Need a roll call?
Patty?
Yes.
Natalie?
Yes.
Alisa?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Beth?
Yes.
Passed unanimously.
okay, the next item, other ordinances for board discussion. Do you have anything you want to bring up at this time?
Anyone?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lucille. Okay, water project. James, I think that would be you.
No, that's the
That's
user agreement.
Yeah, sorry. I just gave her these.
We know that the deadline for submitting your user agreements and your request for utility services is the 5th. They need to be received, completed by the 5th of November. They're coming in, and we're about a third of the way there, I would say. So it's 2 weeks from the day after tomorrow, I think, whatever the 5th is. Tomorrow, I guess.
Wednesday.
Yeah, 2 weeks from tomorrow.
We have to discuss the village user agreement. All right, we have the park, which we would need to maintain. Jim and I talked about it, and the only other one we felt was should be discussed and considered is City Hall, the old City Hall building. And whether or not we should have that. Now, we don't have paperwork for that, and Jim has not identified it on the map yet, but that can all be taken care of. But I'm of two opinions on that. If for some reason we ever actually came into a position where we could rehab the old City Hall and actually make it usable again and get the proper facilities in there, internet and all of that, I would hate to think we didn't meter it and then we had on top of what we were going to do, we would now be adding a hookup fee for it. The other side of the coin is it's going to cost us an extra, we don't pay a water bill at this stage of the game and have not, so we have to factor into our budget $30 a month for water for the park, so that would take us up to $60 for the 2 connections. We can probably figure out a way to make it work. Do some shuffling and finagling, but I think it's probably something we should give serious thought to. We would really like to have our own City Hall at some point.
Discussion?
The Lions Club thinks that members of the Lions Club believe that since the water at the park is mostly used for the picnic and associated activities, and that's the Lions event, that the Lions Club should pay for the monthly fee and be the owner, if you will, of or the renter maybe, of the meter that's at the park, and that would eliminate that. The only thing that the village or the city, for the city park, has now for water isn't metered, and that's the drinking fountain by the playgrounds. And so if the board wanted to continue to have the drinking fountain somewhere in the park or by the playgrounds, then my recommendation would be that the city trench to that meter and connect to the Lions Club meter and either pay a stipend or just let them absorb the cost, which I think they're willing to do because they're good citizens. And everybody helps with the picnic, and that's what raises the money and so forth. And so that's my thing about the park, and I definitely think we need it at the City Hall. So that's my opinion.
Anyone else?
You have a restroom down there?
Not anymore.
It's stubbed in.
Yeah, it's there. You can.
Okay.
But you tore another sheet rock.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was just asking,
because we had
It's
mold.
been a long time since I've been in the building, so.
We kind of do have to decide who is going to actually be the holder of the meter up there at the park. The park does belong to the village. It is basically used most of the time, 90% of the time by Lions, but there are the rare occasions where people go and use the park.
Maybe. What do you
So
feel about doing 1.5 one? Can't do that.
if Lions wants to,
As I say, if somebody's got a signed user agreement, they
Yeah.
agree to pay it. I mean, you can't just.
They offered.
do back and forth, so.
Yeah, I think that my suggestion is that the user agreement is signed and the village is the owner and Lions would be the tenant. And so if the tenant moves, if Lions stop using it, then we shut the meter off and there's no charge until there's another tenant that goes into the park.
that's a possibility. That's not a bad idea.
Everyone?
But where are we gonna get the money? Pay that.
The money for which?
No, we're still talking about the park.
Out of your.
We're still
out of your
talking about the
account,
park.
Jim, Jim, we'll get it out of your account.
I'll take it from you.
Take it off your salary.
Well, that'll leave you in the minus.
Yeah,
He's getting fired anyway. We're not smart meters.
So we need to look at 2 separate things here. The first one being that how you want to approve 2 meter hookups. And then the second would be that we would put together a rental agreement of some type with Lions Club for the water usage. So you're looking at 2 separate items here.
No, I think that running the Lions Club would be the best way to go with that, with the park.
Aletha? Beth?
Yeah, Denise just stated my recommendation, so yeah, I'm for that.
Good.
May I ask a question?
Well, what's the motion? Yeah, we'll need a motion. Yeah.
I don't think
And
so.
does everyone feel that we need to keep the one at the park, at the
I
don't think you
to
can. It's
approve two hookups for the village, one at the park and one at the old city hall.
And we have code of conduct, so would you please?
We would have to pay
We have new code of
$30,
conduct, so you have to.
every month, yes, we will be paying.
And then, and that's gonna come out of the.
I'm glad you
general
dressed up.
fund, the
Well,
water.
You
I
look
mean,
nice.
I thought I heard him say that if you ask, they won't turn the meter on, and you won't have to pay that, is that correct?
Oh, no. No, we'll have to.
You can not turn it on, but you still have to
Yeah, we
pay.
still have a minimum fee,
Yeah.
because Jim and I are talking high finance on pocket money.
Well, I suggest we do it one at a time, so I move that we sign the village sign an agreement for the park and seek or approve the Lions Club to be the tenant and have the bill sent to them, but ultimately, the property and the contract is, Jameson Hound's responsibility.
You need to break those the other way. You need to break them so that you approve two user agreements, one for the park and one for City Hall.
What if I don't want to say?
Okay.
I mean, I don't believe you have to do them together.
Yeah, she's just doing one for the park. Okay.
No.
That's fine. Beth moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Motion passed. So, now, City Hall. What's your feeling on that?
I move that the village sign an agreement for the water service at the old town hall, the city hall.
I have a second.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Names both passed. Okay.
Am I gonna fill it?
No, Patty has to sign them.
When do you get to speak? When do you get to
What
speak?
about the board meeting?
We had, I gave them the update on the people submitting things. The only question that I took to the meeting was one about had the water pressure regulators that are designed to be in the meter pit on the house side, could they, instead of being in the pit on the house side, could they be installed in the house? And that was a no. They just need to. And so someone asked me to ask that, so I did that.
Do they have to be in the pit? They can be twice.
And that makes sense. It's really
One
there.
in each meter, right? And they're gonna furnish those.
That's what it's based on.
We're buying them.
The board meeting she asked about, and the regulators could be on outside the bill, they said no, they had to be in the meter pit.
Need to be in the pit?
Yes. Jim, how about your water report? Whoops, never mind. I'm trying to get out of here. Monthly financial report.
I still have a question. Where does the fire department get their water, since you're going to ignore me?
From the city.
From the city.
And they'll get it from Davies too.
And they're signed up already to get it
Is
from
this-
Davies too.
Is this?
Okay.
Okay.
You said speak up. Do you want me to speak up or not?
You told me to sit down, shut up.
Us would be nice.
I'm not through yet
Respect to
though.
us would be nice.
I am being nice. You told me to speak up.
You're real pleasant.
Okay, so when you say,
They're not the town.
when you say from the city, are you talking about the water, the one you're proposing to install? That was my only question.
They get it, that'd be the only one available. They get it from the only one available
one
now,
you're
which is the
thinking?
Jameson one. And then when the new one is in, they'll get it from Davies too, because that's the only water they'll have available.
Okay, I
no.
was thinking of the particular meter.
No, they're not on that. That's over here.
The fire department would not be on that meter that you're thinking